At 10:30 p.m., my pain-in-the-ass boss sent me a message, "Secretary Luo, what are you doing?" If it were any other man, I might have suspected he was hitting on me. But this was Zhao Guohua, my poker-faced boss who gives me a heart attack every time I look at him. I cursed him out in my head. Then I replied, "Good evening, Mr. Zhao. I'm just working on the PowerPoint for tomorrow's meeting." "Still up?" I tossed my phone aside and went back to shooting the breeze with my friend. My phone vibrated. I picked it up. The message read, "I'm in the booth behind you. I've been listening to you bullshit all night." My whole body went stiff. I whipped my head around and met the dead-on gaze of Zhao Guohua's poker face. Zhao Guohua is a real piece of work. When I first joined the company, I was totally smitten by his handsome face. I used to fantasize about how motivated I'd be, getting to see a face like that at work every day. 3 days later, I wanted to smack him. The man is incredibly difficult. His coffee has to be exactly 7/10 hot. Oh, you're wondering how he can tell? I can only tell you that it depends entirely on his mood. I've tested it. When he's in a good mood, he doesn't care about the temperature. If he's in a bad mood, well, then I'm screwed. My personal record is making him 22 cups of coffee in a single day, none of which were to his satisfaction. Anytime Zhao Guohua wanted something, if I didn't get it done within the time limit, he would chew me out from head to toe. And that's not all. He wears a face so handsome it's a crime, but he has no idea how to make anyone happy. He just walks around all day with a stone-cold expression. Even the cleaning lady gives him a wide berth, probably wondering if she owes him $1 million. Under these harsh conditions, I've somehow managed to stick it out for 2 years, which just goes to show what a tolerant person I am. For this, my friendly Cece gave me a glorious nickname, Ninja Turtle. Okay, fine. The truth is I'm poor, and Zhao Guohua pays pretty well. I can't bring myself to quit. Our relationship should have just stayed like that. He pays for a workhorse, and I suck it up and smile for the money. We both get what we need. But my luck ran out. One night, I was working late. Seeing that the office was empty when Li Sisi called, we started chatting, and eventually, the conversation turned to Zhao Guohua. I really let loose, praising him to the high heavens. How was I supposed to know he'd check the security footage? How was I supposed to know he'd play it for everyone at the morning meeting? Well, fine. What's done is done. Worst case, I'd just quit. But Zhao Guohua didn't fire me, which was quite a surprise. Li Sisi said, "You'd better wise up. You trashed your boss 6 ways from Sunday, and he's keeping you around? He's going to torture you." "No way," I said. "He saw my resignation letter and gave me a raise on the spot." "How much of a raise?" Li Sisi asked. I proudly held up my hand. 8,000. Li Sisi said, "If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. All I can say is good luck. I hope you can handle the pressure that comes with that $1,000. Of course, I didn't go over and clink glasses with Zhao Guohua. Instead, I sent him a text to explain, "Hey, Mr. Zhao. I just finished up with work and thought I'd come out and relax with a friend. What a coincidence running into you here." What I really meant was, of all the rotten luck, how could I run into you, you big jerk? He replied almost immediately, "You've been here since 8:30. You've mentioned me 3 times since then. Is Horseface my new nickname? I seem to recall I was just Anxious Wong last month." I flushed beet red, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. I didn't even dare to turn around, terrified I'd lock eyes with him. With trembling hands, I typed back, Mr. Zhao, I'm about wrapping up here. Enjoy your night, I'm just gonna head out. You're the bigger person, so please don't hold a grudge against a gossipy rookie like me. I wish you immense fortune and a long and healthy life." Then, ignoring my friend's protests, I grabbed my bag and bolted. Li Sisi yelled after my retreating back, "Hey, you're such a buzzkill. You haven't even finished the story about Horseface." I sprinted for the door, wishing I had wings to fly away. I'd had too much to drink. The moment I stepped out of the warm restaurant and the cold wind hit me, I grabbed a nearby trash can and started heaving. A hand with well-defined knuckles held out a couple of napkins to me. Nice hands, I thought. They could give Zhao Guohua a run for their money. I took the napkins and looked up, about to say thanks, when I saw Zhao Guohua's poker face. The words "thank you" died in my throat. He stared at my stunned silence for a long moment before saying coolly, "I'll take you home." When his familiar Mercedes pulled up, I was still debating whether to make a run for it. Then I saw him get out, walk around the front of the car, and open the passenger side door. He cocked his head, a look of annoyance on his face. "What are you standing there for? Get in." That familiar feeling of being intimidated by him finally put me at ease, and I got into his car without a second thought. I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. The one time Zhao Guohua decided to be a gentleman, I was completely thrown off. Zhao Guohua turned on the GPS. "Where do you live? What's the name of the place?" "The Zhongqing Complex," I said. "How do you spell that?" he asked. I spelled it out for him. After about an hour of weaving through the city, we finally pulled up in front of the rundown, subsidized apartment building where I lived. Zhao Guohua looked from the dilapidated building to me, all dressed up, but in the end, he didn't say a word. I was about to thank him again, but before I could, he just drove off. The next day, I got up extra early. I was at the office before 8 to turn on the heat and make coffee for Zhao Guohua, who didn't get in until 9. Zhao Guohua was a busy man. On my very first day here, I'd already heard all about his legendary exploits from my gossipy coworkers. Zhao Guohua, son of Zhao Yingjia, the #1 entrepreneur in X City. The story goes that he refused to take over the family business, starting this company from scratch instead. Obviously, he'd succeeded. At 8:55, Zhao Guohua strode into the office on his long legs. I fawningly handed him his coffee and placed the files he would need right in front of him. Zhao Guohua gave me a flat look. "I want to talk to you today." My stomach dropped. Those are the words every corporate drone dreads hearing from their boss. It was basically the equivalent of, "You're on my shit list, and I'm about to let you have it." I kept a smile plastered on my face and nodded. "Of course, Mr. Zhao. I'm all ears." Zhao Guohua sized me up. "If you prefer, you can just call me Horseface." "I don't mind." I let out a couple of shameless laughs, my fake smile still in place. "I wouldn't dare. Mr. Zhao, you've known me for years, you know my character. I only dare to say things like that behind your back." I couldn't find a better excuse, so I just had to own up to it. But I didn't mean anything by it, you know? I was just talking smack. It goes in one ear and out the other. Deep down, I really do respect you. Zhao Guohua sipped his coffee slowly, watching me from the corner of his eye. His look seemed to say, "You really think I believe you?" He said, "Do you have any issues with your current work situation?" I waved my hands frantically. "No, not at all. I'm very satisfied with my current work situation. What I mean is, are you interested in a breakthrough in your career? In challenging yourself?" I mulled over his words, afraid he was laying a trap. Well, not really, except, could we maybe not have so much overtime?" I said in a small voice. "Reason?" "You saw last night," I said. "I live pretty far away. My commute is 3 hours round trip." "I probably can't help you with the overtime," Zhao Guohua said. "I have to work late myself." "Knowing which battles to pick," I said, "then I have no issues at all." He gave me a look. "Last time, you tried to resign." I quickly cut him off. "No, that was just out of shame. I couldn't bear to leave this company, and especially not you." For a second, Zhao Guohua seemed to crack a smile, but it vanished in a blink, his face an iceberg once more. "To be honest, I don't think you're suited for this position." My neck went stiff as I waited for his verdict. If it weren't for my bedridden father back home, I would have loved to be cruel for once. God knows how badly I wanted to slap my resignation letter on his face and say, "I quit. Find someone else to kiss your ass, because I've had more than enough of waiting on you, asterisk." "You're loose-lipped and impatient," Zhao Guohua said. "Mr. Zhao, just get to the point," I said. "I can't listen to this." Zhao Guohua seemed to decide against beating around the bush any longer. "I want to find an opportunity for you to get a raise." I cut through his bullshit. "You don't have to find an opportunity for that. You could do it any time you want. I recall that last year, you gave me the nickname Zhao the Skinner." My face fell. Mr. Zhao, can't you just forget about that? No, Zhao Guohua said seriously. Last night, I asked Shaoli Luo Jia, with your family situation being what it is, why didn't you tell me? I looked at him, and it felt like the world had tilted. There was no malice in his eyes now, only pity for me. And I didn't want his pity. I just said, oh. I don't like to bring my personal life to work. Zhao Guohua set down his coffee cup and started looking through some files. Good. At least I didn't have to stare into his pitying eyes anymore. Your salary will be raised to 15,000, Zhao Guohua said. But, there's a change. You'll need to accompany me on business trips. I said, with almost no hesitation, I can do that. He flipped through a folder. You can get back to work. Ever since Zhao Guohua raised my salary to 15,000, I started to like the guy a whole lot more. But after a month-long business trip, I started to regret it. I thought Zhao Guohua was a pain to deal with at the office. I never imagined he'd be even worse on a business trip. This 15,000 wasn't money I absolutely had to make. I started giving myself a pep talk. I'm young, I'm decent looking, and I have a good enough education. I can find a suitable job anywhere. Why should I be stuck here, running around at Zhao Guohua's beck and call, only to have him constantly nitpick and look down on me? Halfway through my little speech, my phone rang. It was Zhao Guohua. Before I could say a word, he spoke. Be good, don't fuss. I'm almost done here. I'll be back to keep you company soon. Wait for me. He hung up before I could reply. After 2 minutes of being completely stunned, I stood right where I was and let out a scream. After I screamed, my brain automatically started playing out one of those domineering CEO falls for me dramas. My phone buzzed with a text. I opened it. It was from Zhao Guohua. That call was just an excuse for the table. Come get me. Now. The whole domineering CEO falls for me fantasy shattered. I let out a sigh of relief. Thank God none of it was real. Sure, Zhao Guohua was a feast for the eyes and filthy rich, but he was no saint. If his temper were even slightly better, I could have gotten in line 800 years ago and it still wouldn't be my turn to date him. It was all a false alarm. I felt like I'd dodged a bullet and that good things were bound to come my way. Tonight, Zhao Guohua was having dinner with a group of tycoons of similar status. When I pushed the door open and walked in, all the tycoons turned their gazes on me in unison. I was actually supposed to attend with him tonight and take drinks for him when he couldn't handle any more, but I'd gotten my period and really didn't want to drink, which is why, for the first time ever, I didn't accompany him. Zhao Guohua sized up my outfit, and the corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't until some tycoon I didn't recognize spoke up, you can tell this lady is the virtuous wife and mother type. Good eye, Zhao. That snapped the other tycoons, who had been frozen in shock, back to reality. They all quickly chimed in with their agreement. It was mostly a lot of high-minded compliments about me. Things like how a good wife can support a man's greatest ambitions, how being attentive to his needs is what truly matters, and how, while not a conventional beauty, I had a look that grows on you. The more I listened, the more uncomfortable I got. Just then, Zhao Guohua stood up, said his goodbyes to the tycoons one by one, and then, in front of everyone, took my hand and led me out. The second we were out of the tycoon's line of sight, Zhao Guohua flung my hand away in disgust. What were you thinking, he said, wearing a coat over sweatpants. Real trendy. I said, I figured you were already done. I didn't expect the room to be full of people when I opened the door. Zhao Guohua stared at me, stone-faced, for 5 seconds. Then he turned and walked away. I scrambled after him. It's freezing out. You should be grateful I even got out of my warm bed to come get you, and you have the nerve to complain? Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you're the boss. He walked straight to his car, got in, and drove off, leaving me stranded in the freezing wind. The receptionist, Tang Jian, leaned over to ask, what's the deal? Mr. Zhao gets back from his business trip, and somehow he's in an even fouler mood? I glanced at Zhao Guohua in his office and said distractedly, that's just his face. Tang Jian said, I overheard him on the phone this morning. When did he get a girlfriend? He said something about sending out wedding candy and inviting everyone for drinks after he proposes. My inner gossip flared up. Oh? And then what? Tang Jian said, "You're with him day in and day out, and you didn't notice a thing?" I ignored the day in and day out part. "Just tell me." Basically, Tang Jian said, the person on the other end asked when he was getting married, and he said he hadn't even proposed yet, but told them to wait for the wedding candy. I said, what poor girl's life is he ruining? To think they're already talking marriage. Who knows? Tang Jian said. By the afternoon, Tang Jian had spread the news so far and wide that everyone knew. The entire company was trying to figure out who Zhao Guohua's mysterious girlfriend could be. Until one night, Zhao Guohua got drunk at a bar and called me to come pick him up. I shut him down immediately. "Mr. Zhao, I'm off the clock. This is my personal time. Have special assistant Li go get you." Xiao Li was Zhao Guohua's assistant. Because he never contradicted a single decision Zhao Guohua made, everyone at the company affectionately nicknamed him Special Assistant Li. Special Assistant Li had always doted on Zhao Guohua, obeying his every command. It got to the point where the whole company thought they were a thing. That is, until the perpetually single Special Assistant Li suddenly announced he had a daughter. Only then did we finally give up on shipping him and Zhao Guohua. It was also because Special Assistant Li was taking frequent leave for his precious new daughter that I got stuck with the thankless, albeit higher-paying, job of going on business trips with Zhao Guohua in his place. On the other end of the line, Zhao Guohua's voice was thick and muffled. "If you don't come get me, I'll just..." I have a short fuse, and hearing him stutter like that, I lost my patience. "What, fire me?" Zhao Guohua finished his sentence, "I'll just never talk to you again." I was stunned for 5 seconds, then put on a dramatic voice. "Ew, I'm so scared. Mr. Zhao, don't be like that. You're frightening me." Zhao Guohua's IQ plummeted when he was drunk. He actually said, "Then aren't you going to come get me?" I said, annoyed, "Mr. Zhao, calling me instead of Special Assistant Li, isn't that a bit much? I'm a young woman. If I go pick you up while you're drunk and something happens that ruins my reputation, can you take responsibility for that?" Unexpectedly, Zhao Guohua actually said, "I can." In my head, I cursed, "Can my ass." But what I said was, "I'm not joking around. It's already 11 p.m. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to come find you at this hour." Zhao Guohua said, like a petulant child, "Luo Jia, if you don't come, I'll never talk to you again for the rest of my life." Me. I still ended up driving to pick up Zhao Guohua. In Li Sisi's words, "Luo Jia, you're all bark and no bite. A total paper tiger, completely spineless." When I got to the Radisson bar to pick him up, I have to admit, for a second there, I was stunned. The moment I pushed open the door to the private room, I saw him, Zhao Guohua, lounging on the sofa. He looked a little worse for wear. But the moment he saw me, his face broke into a wide grin. While I was still frozen, he got up and walked over, pulling me into his arms with a familiar ease. The way he held me, the whole motion, it was like he'd done it a million times before. "I knew you'd come," he slurred. "Luo Jia, I knew you'd come get me." He was pretty wasted, his handsome face one big, goofy grin. And I gotta say, setting aside his checkered past, that smile of his could really make the whole world swoon. I didn't know where he lived, so my only option was to take him to a hotel. After waiting on him hand and foot and finally getting him settled, I dragged my exhausted body back to my own little dump of an apartment. The next day. The moment I walked through the company doors, the atmosphere was eerily quiet. From Tang the gossip queen at reception to the flamboyant special assistant, Li, and even the no-nonsense director Gao and the cleaning lady who usually doted on me like I was her own daughter, they all gave me the weirdest looks. I sat at my desk, completely on edge. When I finally managed to corner Tang Jian, I demanded, "Did you spread some scandalous rumor about me?" Tang Jian, aka Gossip Tang, knew everything that happened in the company, big or small. Nothing escaped her. Usually, she was the first to share any and all news with me, but now, her usual friendliness was gone, replaced by a strange sort of respect. I was totally confused. When she saw I wasn't letting go, she finally blurted out, "We all know you were on a date with Mr. Zhao last night. The two of you have a thing going on, and you've been hiding it from all of us." Tang Jian added, "Seriously, Luo Jia, that's not cool." I slammed my hand on my desk and shot to my feet. "Are you kidding me? I yelled. Since when is there anything going on between me and Zhao Guohua? My voice was so loud that everyone in the office turned to stare, including Zhao Guohua himself, looking sharp in his suit as he walked in from the hallway. I slapped a hand over my face and immediately dropped back into my chair. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Zhao Guohua called me into his office at lunchtime. The disheveled, childish man from last night seemed like a completely different person. Now, his expression was cold and solemn, his eyes fixed on my face with no intention of looking away. I said softly, "Mr. Zhao, it's lunchtime." Zhao Guohua looked at me and said, "I'm not hungry." I said weakly, "But I'm hungry." Zhao Guohua's brows furrowed, then the corners of his mouth lifted in a subtle curve, almost imperceptible to an outsider. He stood up and started for the door. "Then I'll go get lunch with you." I didn't move from my spot behind him and said weakly again, "I don't want you to come." Zhao Guohua stopped in his tracks. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, feigning ignorance. I said, "I can't eat my fill when I'm with you. I don't know if you're like this, but I can never relax when I eat with my boss. I don't dare get a second helping, and I can't take too much of the dishes I like." Zhao Guohua snorted and pulled open the glass door without sparing my feelings. "You seem to manage just fine. That business dinner with Mr. Du last month, you ate more than a horse. By the end, Mr. Du didn't even have anything left on the table to eat with his drinks. Me? We were in a high-end restaurant 10 kilometers from the office." I looked at the two pitifully small Western-style dishes in front of me and sighed inwardly. Zhao Guohua said, "The beef here is very good." I speared the small piece of steak with my fork and stuffed it into my mouth. Zhao Guohua was silent for a few seconds before finishing his sentence. "If you cut it into small pieces and pair it with red wine, it brings out a special flavor." I finished it in one bite and wiped my mouth. "Well, that's it for this ridiculously expensive meal." I offered my honest assessment in a low voice: expensive, small portions, not filling. The 20 yuan bowl of malatang downstairs from the office is better. Zhao Guohua studied me for a few long moments, then put down his knife and fork. "Luo Jia, do you want to completely change your circumstances?" That was a good question. Actually, I knew what he was thinking. Ever since he gave me a raise, he's not only required me to accompany him on business trips but has also given me a lot of extra work. I knew he wanted me to learn more skills, but he seemed to forget that there are only 24 hours in a day. He was cracking a whip, making me run around in circles. But aside from torturing me, it wasn't really changing anything. I even knew that he had me accompany him on business trips just so I could see how he navigated the business world. His intentions were good. I was moved to tears with gratitude. But that didn't mean any of it could change my situation. My father is paralyzed and bedridden, so my mother has to be his full-time caregiver. To lighten my burden, she often slips out to do odd jobs while he's asleep, earning a meager income. Last week, while my mother was out, my father tried to strangle himself with a shoelace. If he hadn't had only one good arm, if that arm hadn't been so weak, he might have actually succeeded. When my mother got back, she just quietly removed the tightened shoelace and told him calmly, "Don't do this. If our daughter finds out, she'll be heartbroken." My parents didn't cry that day. But the moment I found out, I cried my eyes out. I always talk trash about Zhao Guohua, but I've never truly disliked him. I disguise myself as a crass, ordinary person, burying my insecurities deep, deep down. I'm grateful to Zhao Guohua. You could even say I respect him. I gave Zhao Guohua the answer he was looking for. I said, "I do." Everyone at the company said Zhao Guohua had stopped letting me work, that he was secretly keeping me in some luxurious villa where all I had to do all day was spend money. Gossip Tang told me all this. The truth was, Zhao Guohua had sent me to his father's company to start from the bottom. If it weren't for Zhao Guohua's personal subsidy, I never would have taken this ridiculously low-paying job, no matter how much potential it had. When I was job hunting after graduation, my main goal wasn't future prospects, but the immediate salary. That grueling tempering process helped me rediscover my purpose in life. A year later, I got a promotion. I called Zhao Guohua late at night to thank him. As he listened to my gushing, flowery words of gratitude, he responded with nothing more than the faintest of ahs, one after another. Only after I had said everything I wanted to say did he speak calmly. "Your father's condition wasn't good last week. I flew to your hometown and brought both your parents here to City X. They're settled in a nursing home in the XX district now. My hand gripped my phone tightly. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. But I'm sure I didn't make a sound. And yet, Zhao Guohua said, don't cry. Let's leave it at that. Contact me when you have time, and I'll take you to see your parents. Before I could say another word, he hung up. One dusky afternoon, Zhao Guohua drove to Zhao Corp to pick me up. There were no romantic undertones. We weren't a couple, so there was no chance of any ambiguous moments. Like friends reuniting after a long time, he said to me, Luo Jia, what are you spacing out for? Get in the car. Seeing that I was still frozen, just staring at him, he got out of the car impatiently, that handsome face of his that could bewitch the masses set in a scowl. Then, with a look of disdain, he pulled the passenger door open for me. After dropping me off at the nursing home, Zhao Guohua briefly disappeared. My mother chattered on and on, telling me so much. She talked about how great this job I'd found was, how the company benefits even included taking care of family members, how my boss was such a decent person, handling even small things like arranging the hospital himself. My mother said so much. But after a while, I couldn't take in another word. My gaze drifted from my parents to the tall, straight figure outside the window. The last bit of twilight glow on the green horizon was about to disappear. But Zhao Guohua's radiant figure seemed eternal. I don't like to complain about being poor, and I especially don't like to voice my anxieties to others. My avoidance boils down to not wanting anyone's pity. Even more, I don't want to owe anyone any favors. But with Zhao Guohua, from beginning to end, he never made me feel the weight of my debt to him. To protect that little bit of pride I have, he promoted me while simultaneously tempering me without a shred of pity. My tightly pressed lips moved as I looked at his back, and the words thank you slipped out. My gaze met Zhao Guohua's as he happened to turn back to look at me. He still wasn't smiling, but his expression was no longer as distant as it used to be. In its place was a gentleness I had never glimpsed before. On the way back, I treated Zhao Guohua to an 18 yuan bowl of beef noodles. Zhao Guohua ate with such refinement. I slurped my noodles with spectacular gusto and told him, this is how you're supposed to eat noodles. Watch, like this. After finishing his beef noodles with hearty satisfaction, Zhao Guohua said, Luo Jia, you're right. A 20 yuan malatang is better than a 2,000 yuan steak, and this 18 yuan bowl of beef noodles is just as good. I was genuinely terrified he was about to confess his feelings. So I immediately cut in, well, of course. You could say I broadened your horizons in a way. Zhao Guohua chuckled. Your hometown is beautiful, more beautiful than City X. When I got to your house that day, I started thinking, maybe I should build a house there. I could retire there when I'm old. I looked at him, not knowing what to say. Zhao Guohua's parents lived in a villa halfway up a mountain, and he himself lived in an exclusive villa district in City X where every inch of land was worth a fortune. The scenery there was no worse than my hometown. The implication in his words was too big, I didn't dare to guess his meaning. Zhao Guohua stood up and looked at me, frozen to the spot. Let's go. I'll take you back. 3 years later, I'd worked my way up to department director. My salary and benefits went up with the title. On New Year's Day, a heavy snow blanketed X City. It was colder than any year I could remember. My parents had moved out of the nursing home. Now, we were living together in a 3-bedroom house. The warm glow of the lights and the delicious food made it a moment of pure bliss. Outside, the sky was filled with fireworks, but my heart was completely at peace. There was no one else on my mind. Only Zhao Guohua. I slipped away from my parents to call him. Before I did, I'd already scrolled through his social media feed several times. He had said that because of me, he'd learned how to get along with his parents. This New Year's Eve, he was with his parents, just 20 kilometers away from me. This year was bound to be special. He didn't sound surprised at all when he answered. As calm as ever, he just said, Happy New Year. I looked up at the sky and said over the din, Mr. Zhao, thank you. He chuckled. Actually, I'm the one who should be thanking you. He started talking, almost to himself. Before you came to work for me, I went through secretary after secretary. No one could put up with my bad temper. You were the only one who stayed. He went on and on, romanticizing memories I could barely stand to recall. It also made me see, from his perspective, just how much I'd put up with to work so tirelessly for him. Until I said, honestly, actually, Mr. Zhao, I didn't do any of that for you. I knew saying it right then was a total mood killer. But I had to be honest. I did it for the money. Zhao Guohua laughed, spoiling the mood even more. Luo Jia, you're not that pretty, you're clumsy, sometimes thoughtless, you always give me a hard time, you don't have any obvious strengths, and you've got a sharp tongue. I begged, stop, Mr. Zhao. Let me have a nice New Year's, please. Zhao Guohua finished his thought. But you're honest and you're resilient. I really like that. A trope headline flashed through my mind, the cold, domineering CEO falls for tenacious me. I was so lost in that thought I didn't even realize when Zhao Guohua had hung up. The year I was 28, my father passed away. My mother and I put on a brave face, packed up his belongings, and gave him a proper send-off. For a long time afterward, my mother was always in a daze. To help her move on from her grief, I often took time off work to stay home with her. On the day Zhao Guohua and his legendary father publicly reconciled in front of the media, I received my transfer papers. The subsidiary was short an executive, and I was being sent to fill the role of vice president. The night my colleagues threw me a farewell dinner, Zhao Guohua showed up uninvited. He brought a bottle of fine wine and, unbothered by the stares, sat down next to me as usual. He was charming and witty the entire time, and my colleagues, who had been so intimidated in his presence, began to see him in a new light. When the dinner ended, he didn't leave like everyone else. Instead, he walked with me down the street. My heart was full of hope. With me moving so far away, chances to just call each other and meet up would be few and far between. But I was also afraid he would ask me to stay. If he did, given all he'd done for me, I couldn't possibly say no. I was torn. Zhao Guohua suddenly stopped and looked at me. Luo Jia, he said, I'm truly happy for you. Seeing you do so well. I'm really so proud of you. We walked for an hour. In all that time, he neither asked me to stay nor confessed his feelings. We talked about so many things, from the first time we met to how our lives had changed. Finally, Zhao Guohua drove me home. Before I got out of the car, he suddenly said to me, Luo Jia, if one day you get tired, if you can't fly anymore and need a place to land, please, call me first. I pushed the car door open and, just as sincerely, said, I will. After I was stationed in El City, my relationship with Zhao Guohua turned into one of online friends. He would often send polite greetings. His way of asking was sincere in the way many older people are. Although it was completely out of step with the humor of current internet memes, Zhao Guohua's greetings were unmatched and irreplaceable. It was a thoughtfulness that went straight to the heart. For example, at 7 in the evening, while I was eating my first meal of the day, he suddenly called me. I sent you a lot of messages and you didn't reply, so I took the liberty of calling the general manager's office. I laughed and said, I just stepped out to find a place to eat and forgot to check my phone. Zhao Guohua said with a hint of complaint, Luo Jia, that's not how you should be working yourself. Everyone understands that. But there are too many people younger, harder working, and more capable than me. I'm just too ordinary. If I don't push myself, I could very well lose my job. I laughed and offered a cliché, you have to fight to win, right? I don't want my life to just stop here. Zhao Guohua was silent for a few seconds, then said, Luo Jia, why won't you tell me that your situation there isn't good? That people are giving you a hard time, that you're working overtime every day? Are you eating properly? Are you getting enough rest? I said, of course I am. Everything here is fine. Zhao Guohua suddenly asked me, is there a mall near your company? I struggled to think. Zhao Guohua followed up with another question, are there any good restaurants near your company? I said, of course there are. Zhao Guohua asked, what are their names? What kind of restaurants are they? What are their signature dishes? When did you go? How was the food? Faced with Zhao Guohua's barrage of questions, which were more nagging than my own mother's, I said with a wry smile, Mr. Zhao, don't forget, my mom is here too. With her around, I don't need to eat out. Zhao Guohua mercilessly exposed my lie, I already called your mother. She said you come home very late every day and eat all 3 of your meals out. I still wanted to argue. Zhao Guohua continued, I also called your assistant. She said you often skip meals and sleep for your projects, and that pulling all-nighters is a regular occurrence. I sighed. Mr. Zhao, have you forgotten something very important? He asked, what is it? I said, given our current relationship, for you to be this concerned about me, isn't that a little? The other end of the line went silent. After the silence, Zhao Guohua quietly hung up. Luo Jia, I've had it with you. What right do you have to oppose this project? Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you were dropped in here. Hu Jia slammed his hand on the table and shot to his feet, pointing a finger in my face. Even if you don't sign off on this PR project, I'm still submitting it to the board. Consulting you was just a formality. This company was running just fine before you got here. The conference room was dead silent. Hu Jia continued, this place can run perfectly fine without you. Once he had vented all his anger, I said calmly, Manager Hu, I was just giving my objective opinion. The PR proposal is good, but it doesn't fall under the environmental category. If a proposal like this isn't tied to environmental protection, the company would be taking a huge risk by investing in it so rashly. Hu Jia sneered, you call that an objective opinion? You've been here for 6 months, and you've shot down 3 of my proposals. You're deliberately targeting me. I'm not, I said sincerely. He obviously didn't believe me. He stood up, grabbed his folder from the table, and laid down an ultimatum. Let me be perfectly clear, it's either you or me in this company. I'll see you at the board meeting tomorrow. As I dragged my feet out of the office, I came face to face with Zhao Guohua. I froze, rubbing my eyes in disbelief. He was surrounded by people and only glanced at me for a few seconds before the crowd swept him away. During the lunch break, news that the president of the parent company was making an unannounced visit spread like wildfire. I thought to myself, Zhao Guohua held several positions and was always swamped, what was he doing here? Just as I was wondering, my door was pushed open. Zhao Guohua left it ajar, as if he wanted everyone outside to see. He smiled and said in a voice loud enough for them to hear, Director Luo, you don't look too happy. I smiled, playing along. Of course not. I haven't eaten. Zhao Guohua walked over to my side, and to my surprise, he held out a hand. Palm up, he said, in that case, would Director Luo have time to have lunch with a loafer like me? He was certainly no loafer, and I had no choice but to be free. I stared at his palm and said, President Zhao, you've graced us with your presence. Of course, I should be the one to treat you. But as for where and what to eat, that's for you to decide. My brain was short-circuiting. I was just stalling, giving him a chance to retract his hand. But Zhao Guohua didn't seem to take the hint. Instead, he leaned forward, bracing both hands on my desk, trapping me in an intimate pose. Gasps came from the open-plan office outside, followed by a ripple of whispers. My face burned. In a voice only he and I could hear, I said, Zhao Guohua, stop it. You're taking this too far. He pulled back from his flirtatious pose, reached into his trouser pocket, and took out a fine velvet box. I came prepared this time, he said. My breath caught in my throat. I'd fantasized about Prince Charming proposing to me, but not in a mortifying moment like this. Zhao Guohua calmly opened the box, revealing a massive diamond ring. Luo Jia, he said, either I take your hand and we walk out of here, and you treat me to lunch as the local host, a cheap bowl of spicy noodles is fine, a bowl of beef noodle soup works too. I asked, and if I don't? Then I'll get down on one knee right now and propose, Zhao Guohua said with a roguish smile. And you can get ready to make headlines with me. I swallowed hard. He continued his threat, and you wouldn't want your picture in the papers looking like this, would you? Of course, I chose the first option, obediently placing my hand in his under the watchful eyes of the entire office. Looking at Zhao Guohua's triumphant, beaming face, for a moment I felt like I'd walked right into his trap. Watching Zhao Guohua expertly slurp his noodles, I said, you've gone too far. How could you joke about something like that? Zhao Guohua gave me a nonchalant look. I'm not joking. I just wanted you to have a meal with me. He wiped his lips with a napkin and asked, hitting me with the ultimate question, is it so wrong that I wanted to eat? Well. No, it's not, I said. He flashed a dashing smile. This guy, Zhao Guohua, outsiders have a lot to say about him. Some say he's serious and unsmiling, cold and distant. Some say he's decisive and ruthless. Others say he's cunning and calculating. But to me, none of that was him. In this situation, however, I had to admit that Zhao Guohua was more cunning than a fox. I even suspected he was just using this as an excuse to achieve some goal he couldn't act on before. And I had always been his for the taking. Looking at Zhao Guohua's handsome face, I took it all back. Who was I, anyway? Why on earth would Zhao Guohua be interested in me? He's handsome and rich. He'd have to be blind to fall for me. My thoughts spiraled deeper. I even pictured Zhao Guohua falling out all over again with the parents he'd only just reconciled with, all for me. What a disaster. Zhao Guohua waved a hand in front of my face. Why are you zoning out like a dummy? Grumbling about me in your head again? No, no. I said. You totally are, he said. Laden with gifts, Zhao Guohua visited my mom. He then conveniently stayed for dinner. And then, just as conveniently, he stayed the night. While I was making the bed for him, Zhao Guohua walked in. Seeing me struggling to put on the duvet cover, he just stood there, leisurely sipping his coffee with no intention of helping. I shot him a look. Ever since he showed up, the company group chat had been blowing up nonstop. I didn't even dare to open it anymore. Hey, Luo Jia, I told my mom I'm bringing my girlfriend home for the new year. I shot him another look. Zhao Guohua continued, if you don't help me out, I'll just rent a girlfriend to deal with my mom. I shot him yet another look. Zhao Guohua put down his coffee and plopped down on the bed I'd just made. There's something I've been meaning to say, but I never knew how. He scratched his head. I told you once in City X, but thinking back, I must have been too subtle, so you didn't get it at all. I wasn't that dense. He was underestimating me. So, he said, I've been planning to tell you again. So I bought a ring, and so I came here. The air seemed to freeze. The truth is, I understood everything. But I was afraid to take that next step with him. Our family backgrounds, our life experiences, they were worlds apart. Even if this wasn't just a whim for him, let's be realistic, how could Zhao Guohua's parents possibly accept a plain, unremarkable daughter-in-law like me? If I were in their shoes, with such an outstanding son, I wouldn't want him to just marry some ordinary woman either. I don't know when it started. Maybe it was from the first time we met, when you were clumsily making coffee for me, testing my preferences little by little until you knew me like the back of your hand. Zhao Guohua's voice was calm and magnetic, impossible to ignore. You might not be exceptional in many people's eyes, but I just like you the way you are. Tenacious and thriving, like one of those roly-poly toys you can't knock down. Even if life knocks you flat, you'll just bounce right back the next moment. While I was still trying to figure out if that metaphor was a compliment or an insult, Zhao Guohua said, by bounce back, I mean you always find a way to relieve your stress, like giving me nicknames and grumbling about me behind my back. A confession like that is never going to work, I said through gritted teeth. He shrugged. Like I said, I came prepared. And I'm determined to win. I'll show you, I thought to myself. I won't let you get your way. But when Zhao Guohua stood up and came closer. When he placed his hands on my shoulders. When he leaned in toward my face. I still got so nervous I squeezed my eyes shut. The soft pressure I expected on my lips never came. Instead, I just felt a gentle push on my forehead. Opening my eyes, I saw Zhao Guohua looking at me with a playful smirk. Forgot to tell you, he said. I figured out a long time ago that you never say what you mean. I was speechless. The next day, Hu Jia didn't come to work. His resignation letter was on my desk. Not many people write their resignation letters by hand these days. I called my assistant in and said, get in touch with manager Hu for me. I'd like to buy him a coffee. Hu Jia was an excellent leader. I'd never held any prejudice against him. He had worked hard for years, fighting his way to where he was today. Just when he was about to be promoted to the next level, I showed up out of nowhere. I took the position he'd always dreamed of, shattering the dream he'd worked toward for years. I had no intention of fighting with him, but the prejudice and conflict that lay between us were, for a time, impossible to resolve. I considered leaving, but I didn't want to just walk away like that. While I felt sorry for him, I was also hurt by his prejudice. In his eyes, I was nothing more than a person with connections who had used her looks to get parachuted in above him. Now that my connections had been confirmed, he no longer had any reason to stick around. Hu Jie's expression was blank, but then he suddenly gave me the apology I had always wanted to hear. I'm sorry. I needed to know the true meaning behind his apology, and that it wasn't just because of Zhao Guohua's appearance. Hu Jie lowered his head, nervously stirring his coffee. I could see the top of his head. He was still young, but he already had a lot of gray hair. It showed just how much he had given to the company, to his projects. Hu Jie said, before, I thought you'd used some dirty tricks to get ahead. My view of women was too one-sided, too narrow-minded. I sincerely apologize. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have thought of you that way, and I especially shouldn't have made such filthy assumptions about women. After we buried the hatchet, I sent him a text. I tossed your resignation letter in the shredder, Manager Hu. Please stay. The company needs you. A long time later, I got a 2-word reply. I had specifically tested this before. When he's in a good mood, he doesn't care about the temperature of his coffee. I was 29 that year. Zhao Guohua was 35. On the very first day he took full control of the Zhao group, he used his authority to have me transferred back to X City. The moment he saw me, he ignored the media's cameras and swept me, all travel-worn, into his arms. He whispered in my ear, I planned for everything, but I never imagined you'd come back dressed so casually. I wasn't moved. I even felt I'd walked right into a trap. My tears were definitely not from being moved. My mind was consumed with how the news would portray me tomorrow, and how the public would pick me apart. Zhao Guohua said, Luo Jia, my Luo Jia, welcome back to my side. Through my tears, I said bitterly, I hate you, Zhao Guohua.